Hey everyone, it is Danielle Marie from the One Realty here in Austin, Texas. And today we are finally going to start looking at, I looked at it before, but I really want to get the final numbers of September. So if you've been watching the real estate market, you've probably seen that we've had significant dips when it comes to interest rates, and then they kind of went back up. But how did that affect Austin? So what I first want to do is I want to pull and I want to talk about September's numbers. So we kind of reported it on the 1st of October, but we were really missing everyone as far as like the builders, agents that were late to put in the numbers. This is stuff that you're not going to get on Redfin and Zillow because Texas is a non-disclosure state, so we don't tell you. So let's talk final numbers for September in Austin, Texas. So at the end of the day, in Austin, Texas, for single family homes, we sold 555 homes. Guys, that is not a lot of homes. If we talk about what our historical averages from 2005 to 2023, so 05 to 23, what our average was closer to 868. And the highest we ever sold was back in 2020, and that was 1,191 homes. So we sold this past month in Austin, Texas, 63% of what our historical average for homes, that is what we sold. So everyone's going, okay, great. This is good news for some buyers because they're like, hey, prices are going to fall. This is going to be amazing. We're not selling houses in Austin. We only sold 555 in September. That's going to be great. Well, what I want to say though is surprisingly, even though we only sold 555 homes, we actually did not see much movement when it came to median price. So median sold price, and let me give you context. So first off, how many houses did we sell in September of 23? So a year ago. So year over year, we sold 663 homes. So we sold about 108, not about, exactly 108 less homes this year than we did the previous year. That's a 16.29% reduction. So we saw a reduced, and 23 was already a reduced amount of homes being sold. So we saw a reduction there. Then when it comes to price, now our average sales price this past year in September, it turned out to be $775,000. So if we go and we look at it historically from last year, our average price was $781,000. So that is seeing a tick down. So we're seeing that it ticked down just over 0.75%. So not even a full percent. If we compare it to what happened in August, so in August, the average sales price in Austin in August was $833,000. So significantly higher. This month, we're at like $58,000 less on our average. So like 7% reduction on our average. That's a big reduction. Now, what I also want to keep in mind is when we're looking at what happened and what sold in August, and we saw that average was $833,000, we have to remember it's an average. And in Austin, you have houses that are selling for $250,000. You have also houses that are being sold for $25 million. So you will have some higher end houses, especially during the summertime. That's typically, you'll see it if you think about the type of buyer that's in the summer that are moving, like families and kids in higher numbers. You're going to see more of that probably happen in the summer timeframe versus as we get into school year, because you're going to say houses that are selling right now, more than likely it's not as many school age children, just because of the fact that they're already in their school for the year. With that being said, this is the other standard to look at is we look at averages can be skewed. We talk about like standard deviation and kind of going out and above, but let's look at the median. So the median is going to tell us in all those prices of houses, where does that middle house fall? Where are we falling with that middle house? So the middle house for September of 24, so this past month that just happened, our middle house sold for $620,000. Now, these are single family homes in the city of Austin. So if you're joining me now, my name is Danielle Marie. I'm the founder of the One Realty here in Austin, Texas. Also, feel free to ask a comment or to ask a question in the comments. Feel free to subscribe so that you find more about me and follow me along. I really, really appreciate that. But with that being said, we sold a median house last month in Austin at $620,000. Now, if we look at where we were in 23, and so in 23 last year, our median sales price was $599,000. So that's a $20,000 difference. And that equates to about 3.35%. So while our average was down little about 0.75%, our median was up 3.35%. That's huge. If you actually start thinking about like, hey, we sold 16% less homes last year. Obviously, we think the prices are going to go down. They didn't. They kind of stayed, the median stayed there. If we look at the median sales price, now we talked about the average was significantly higher in August compared to September. We're talking about almost a 7% difference. If we look at the median house that was sold, the median house in August in Austin, Texas, sold for $617,500. So our median price shot up $2,500. And while that's only 0.4%, it still kind of shows like, hey, there's still something kind of going on there. We aren't seeing prices. Prices are not just dropping off in Austin, Texas. Like people would expect, and that's where if you follow, like I say, the doomsdayers out there and the markets are going to crash and everything like that. I do think that we are going to see a market crash in regards to, and we are going to, but we have seen. So we have seen a significant reduction in the number of sales, and that's for this entire year. So starting about March, when we had those interest rates were below 7, as soon as the interest rates went above 7 back in like March, April, our sales just started to decline. It wasn't pretty. We saw it happen. So number one takeaway is we sold 63% of the homes that we historically sold this month. However, our sales price, our median sales price, has kind of slightly risen compared to even year over year. Year over year, it's just 0.4%. Month over month, it was a year over year, it was a 3.35. Month over month, it was 0.4. Our average was a little less, but once again, Austin, we have some very $1 million listings, and then we have some really low listings. So really looking at that median is going to give us a better indication. Now, as far as close price to list price, and close price to original list price. This is also something, if you are buying a house, you're going to want to be paying attention to this, because the close price to list price really helps me figure out for my buyers, where are we offering? What is the average house going for? What is the most that a house went under list price? What is the most a house went over list price? This is also helping my sellers, because I can let my sellers know, hey, here's this list price that we're coming in, depending on where we want to go with the list price. And that's going to be dependent on seller situation. Depending on what your situation is, how quickly you need to move the house, maybe how long you want to hold on to the house, we're really going to talk numbers and figure out what is best for you. So for close price to original list price, so what the house was originally listed at, we're going to look at that first. So in Texas, in Austin, and that's what we're talking about, single family homes. So in Texas, our close price to our original list price, we're going to look at it both ways. Our average close price to original list price, we were looking at 96.96% was close price to list price. So just slightly under 3% is where it is. Now, if we look at close price to original list price, and this is the average, we're at 92.16%. So houses were closing about little more, but 8% under the original list price is what houses were closing for in Austin in the month of September. If we look at our median, so our median was, we were closing at 98% of the current list price. So you're saying like about 2% off of the list price. And our median close price to original list price was at 94%. So about 6% under. So that kind of gives you an idea kind of where prices are. We're saying like 2% under what it's currently listed at, 6% under what the original list price. Granted, there's some houses that are significantly under. Now, why is our original list price not significantly lower? Like, why are we not close price to original list price? Why are we not like 89%? Well, that also goes back to what is happening with our sellers. Our sellers in Austin, Texas, have realized it's taking longer to sell a house. So to give you an idea of how long it's taking to sell a house, for the houses that closed in September, our average days on market before they went under contract was 62. Our median was 47. So if we compare that to last year, So 62 was how many days was our average. Last year's average was 53. So we're talking about 9-day difference. And we're talking also not much change in the price, as well as our median days on market this year was 47. Our median days on market last year was 34. So that's a big jump. That's almost 2 weeks. Like our median house is about 2 weeks longer, but we're not seeing that much drastic drop in prices. And that also goes back to sellers holding on to the price of their house. A couple of reasons. One, maybe they have a lower interest rate and they're okay with waiting. They're not having to sell immediately. We did see across the board, we did see an increase in the sales activity this past week. And I'll kind of dive into that a little bit because I think it's important to see, okay, we're talking September, we're already in October. What is happening with October? Because September houses and our closed houses, those are really houses that went under contract in August and we saw closing out in September, or they went under contract at the beginning of September, they closed out the end of September. So really, we're still about a month behind in like what our data and what we're looking for. If you follow me on X, and I'm at the One Realty, but the _1_realty. If you go find me on X, I about weekly put up updates about what's actually happening, so you can kind of stay on top of it. So I'm going to transition over to that. So number one takeaway is sales, we're underperforming drastically on sales. Keep that in mind because what's going to happen is we're underperforming on sales compared to historically. So we're like 63% under, is that eventually, because it will eventually happen when I have my own idea. We can talk offline. We can talk a different thing about that. I think that even with rates, even if rates were to come down even more, which I'm going to pause, especially with the job numbers that just came out, and with the truth behind job numbers and everything like that, yeah, we'll see. But how many were actual full-time jobs versus part-time jobs, whatnot. But already we saw a big jump. We're already back to like a 6.62, I think was what this morning was for Mortgage News Daily, versus when like a week and a half ago, we got down to like a 6.11. So we kind of went up, which is a big jump. And that was based on the jobs reports that came out last Friday. With that being said, don't think we're all preparing for interest rates to go down any further this year. Think that we're going to see massive swings in buyers. What's really going to be is getting into next year in the spring. If we stay below 7, which below 7 last year, we did see it pick up. If we stay below 7, or if we go anywhere, if we go below 6, just be ready. But if we're in the 6s, I think it's going to be a little bit slower, not as much activity, but still more than this year. With that being said, all those buyers that have not bought, they're sitting on the sidelines, as well as people typically live in an apartment for 3 to 4 years. Well, everyone that moved here in 21 and couldn't buy, we're getting around that 3-year, 2021, we're seeing that 3-4 year mark. So it'll be very interesting to see if people jump from apartments and we start seeing people, graduate and get out of them, or if they stay, in the apartments. But with that being said, without further ado, let's talk about what's happening in Austin now. So if we talk, I just did this data yesterday, but if we talk about the list price over the past 7 days, there was 254 more homes that were listed. It was fair amount. It was actually an increase from the previous year. Our average house that was being listed was at 1.17 million. Our median was 692. So you can kind of see the disparity right there between what our list price and actually what is selling. We're selling at the lower echelon. We're not selling at that $1 million price point. Our average is in like the 700s. What I will say is, if we look at the 1st of October through the 7th of October, 144 single family homes went under contract. The previous week, it was 137. Before that, at the beginning of September, we were looking at like 124, 127. Typically what happens is as we get into the fall, we typically continue to see the numbers of pending houses drop off. So that spike did go back to the fact that rates dropped down a little bit and maybe brought a few buyers back. How long that spike will last, I don't know. I can tell you there was a group of houses that I took a buyer to this past week. Granted, it was in the 400s, but we saw 5 houses. Out of the 5 houses, 4 of the houses have offers. Currently, 2 are under contract. The one that we wrote an offer on, we're going back and forth still. So that is just saying that, hey, we're seeing stuff. We're seeing some action happen out there. Now, whether those are investors or primary, it's going to be a mix of them both kind of coming back and seeing. So with that being said, we did see an uptick in the number of houses that went pending. is it drastic enough to change prices? No, we still have a lot of inventory that we eat through in Austin. So speaking of inventory, my number yesterday was like 3,004 houses, single family homes were here on the market in Austin. Looking now this morning, we're already in like, it was like 2,995, which still is very high. So it's higher than what we've seen the past couple of years. If we start going into like 2016 timeframe, that's when we're going to start seeing the same inventory levels. But our inventory is very, I say very nice. Now, the type of homes, that's going to also depend. Typically, you would see a good mix of homes that have been completely renovated. You would see new construction flipping. I actually would say that the quality of houses that we're seeing is probably on the lower end. And the reason is part of it's going to go back to the fact that we don't have flippers out here. For the past year and a half, Austin has not become a flipping market. So we're not seeing that. So those also that bring to market, it used to be one of those things that like, hey, fresh paint, fresh fixtures, different things like that are really going to command a higher price point in the house. There's not as many of those that we're seeing. We're not seeing sellers do what they used to do 5 years ago and touch up the house before bringing it to market, which at the end of the day, that is a deciding factor between those that are buying and those that are selling. We're seeing that people aren't updating their houses. And so those few houses that are having kind of some attention to detail, those are moving more quickly. And I'm not talking about renovating the whole house and everything like that. I'm talking like people are just painting the cabinets. People are painting the house. They're changing out and maybe upgrading light fixtures. Very, very simple things that you can do to bring buyers to your house. So with that being said, we do have a significant inventory. Our average price for those 3,000 plus homes that are on the market is at a 1.16 million. And the days on market, the median was 699. The days on market is 88 and 68. So if we just looked at what closed out in September, look at it this way. The houses in September were closing out at 62 and as the average, our average now is 88. That's significant change. Like we're talking 26, almost an extra month, just 1 month of closing. But those are the active listings that are on the market. So houses are taking longer to sell. Does that mean that there's deals to be had out there? Absolutely. One of my favorite person, Mike Zuber from One Rental at a Time. If you are a Mike Zuber fan, do me a favor, give me a heart right now or comment right below. But Mike is amazing. He talks about disrespectful offers. So are there people that are going to have to sell their house? They're coming up. Yeah. I'm actually starting to run into them with some of my buyers. I've actually noticed a lot of houses that are being relisted that maybe were bought 3 years ago that are being listed very close to their original sales price. The only thing saving them is the amount of money that they put down. That way the sellers aren't bringing money to the closing table. With that also being said, if you just want to sneak peek, I pulled those houses that this past week, so we said 144 homes went pending this past week in Austin. And I had someone reach out to me on X. I'm very data friendly, stuff that you're not going to find. How can I compile it for you and talk to you about it? And he said, hey, what were the prices? Was there a big shift in prices? Are we seeing a lot more houses go under contract? My initial reaction after looking at the data from yesterday, the month data, was like, oh, well, our medians are still pretty high. But then I went and I pulled specifically those 144 that closed in the last 7 days. And what I noticed is that median price was down about 85,000. So our median sales price, instead of being around like the 620, was at 535, and our average price, instead of it being at like the 785 kind of time, we were at 699. So that shows that those big spike in buyers, it was the lower priced homes, which probably goes back to the interest rate. So those people that were sitting on the fence that were waiting, they're popping in, as well as investors. Investors are starting to pop in. You're not necessarily going to have a lot of investors at the $1 million price point. You might have more that are at the 5 and at the 6 because they know that, hey, that quality of house, I can flip it and I can get it ready. Speaking about investing, I'm going to kind of flip over to that too. And real quick, the close so far that have closed this month in October, there's 110 houses. You might be interested in this. 110 houses have closed. Our current close price, our average is 826. So actually higher than September's, which is very interesting. September's was at 775. Right now, our average is at our average for October is at 826, but our median, instead of being at 620, is at 602. So I think it kind of goes back to what level, get a few $1 million houses in there. It's going to shift that. But with that being said, I do want to call this out. I had a very interesting conversation with someone that reached out to me the other day to refer a client to me that is an investor. She's actually an interior designer and she renovates homes, and she was having some frustration with what was currently happening and an agent that she was currently working with, and wasn't data, wasn't number driven, was just kind of like, hey, we bought this house here. We'll wait to see what we listed for when the market is. No, please do not do that. And we talked to her. She's absolutely amazing. She came from San Francisco, and her other agents that she had in San Francisco really built a timeline out. And so this is for my investors that are thinking about flipping, because I will say that Austin, when it comes to those houses that are being flipped, that inventory continues to shrink. So if you're able to get in a good deal right now, especially coming up to December, something to consider. Something to consider is like, hey, what would you do? What house can I buy? And what is the market for a renovated house commanding in that area? Because that's where you're going to see, if we did have multiple offers last year, it was typically on those houses. Is if you are trying to renovate a home and you are trying to sell a renovated home in Austin, Texas, my goal for you is that you need to be on the market no later than mid-April. And here's why, is we typically see buyers return. You start seeing a trickle of them come in, start in January and February. And really those individuals, they're eating up the market that was kind of all the leftovers, I say, from January or from November, December timeframe, and they're eating them up. But we still have a significant amount. Now, during November, December, in January, you're also seeing people pull their houses off the market. People are taking them off. We're reducing our inventory. And we really don't see people start putting their houses on until really in February and March. But really when we start hitting March timeframe is where we see buyers that are buying for, let's say, tax returns. They got their tax returns. They filed early. They know what they need to sell. So they have their tax returns. They are coming to move in the area. Maybe they need 2 years of tax returns to buy their house. Maybe they have a business and they just got a huge tax refund early on because they beat those days. That's really, we start seeing them in March. And in April is really when it's the sweet spot for my sellers, in the sense that there's not an overinflated amount of inventory and you do have buyers return. So that's when we typically saw a lot of the price, multiple offers that happened even in the past like 4 or 5 years. Specifically with COVID, we saw a lot of that take place during that end of March, really beginning of April, because people also do not want to put their house on the market until the end of the school year. So if people have kids, if they're graduating, different things like that, they're kind of letting the year wind down. And typically they start hitting the market in February because they figure, or not February, in May, because they figure, hey, if I put the house on the market in May and it sells, it's probably going to be sold. Closing date's probably going to be end of May, June timeframe, perfect time to move, not worry about it. But what you don't understand is that's the mentality that anyone that's having a high school senior or moving states or different things, that's when they're typically dealing it. So if you can beat the market and you can actually have your house come on the market end of March, April, definitely have your house on by middle April. Even if you have a high school senior, this might sound crazy here. I would just say, when I say high school senior, I'm saying those are kind of some of the areas that people are like have to move. And a lot of times we see it when empty nesters and kids have gone off, you'll see that. But what I would say is, if you're going to sell your house in 2025, let's set you up for success. Let's look at having it on by mid-April. Honestly, if you have it a little earlier, it's not a bad thing. You are beating the demand and the rush of the houses. So with that, I know there's quite a few people that are on here watching. I can see my numbers count. So really, I say happy and excited for that. With that being said, if you are watching me now and you have any questions, and maybe you have a question about a different area that you're in, different part of Austin, feel free to leave me a comment right here. I can kind of give you a little bit of advice about the different areas, maybe price point, maybe you want to know about a specific zip code. Feel free to drop that in the comments and I should be able to see that. But just want to let you know that yes, overall, the takeaway from this market is we are seeing significant drops in the number of houses, but we're not seeing drops in prices. So setting yourself up for success if you are a buyer, knowing that, and knowing that our average days on market is 88. So if you see a house that's been on the market for 120, good to know. Also, make sure if you're also looking at a house and it's on the market, you're going to see two different numbers sometimes. Sometimes you're going to see a ADOM, active days on market, and CDOM, cumulative days on market. So if someone takes their house off the market, maybe you relist with another agent, you might see days on market as 1. Make sure to click on that listing because you might see a cumulative days of 150 or of significantly more. And that is because it was off, it was either withdrawn, expired, and a new agent listed it, and then their counter for active days on market reset, but their cumulative did not. So with that, I am Danielle Marie from the One Realty here in Austin, Texas. I would really appreciate if you're watching this video and you found me for the first time. Please like, comment, let me know that you're here, follow me. Also, feel free to share this if you know anyone that is looking to invest in Austin. Happy to help and reach out, or else, honestly, just share this information. Austin is a non-disclosure state, meaning when I start talking about close price to list price, people can't find that out. So you can only find that out, I say, through an agent, and I am very data friendly and want people to know. So doesn't look like I have any questions, but appreciate you guys following along. I hope you all have a absolute wonderful day here in Austin. If you are going to ACL this weekend, have a blast. Be prepared for traffic. So have a good day.